Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for this installment of Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor is yours. What do you guys want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss today. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to have you guys here. And welcome to Happy Canada Day, start of a brand new week. Good to have you guys joining me. We had a really fun show this morning. For those of you who may not have checked in, we did a little adjustment to the format of the show of the John Campea Show earlier today. Christina's saying hello from Flint, Michigan. I've spent a lot of time in Flint, Michigan. Actually, I used to drive across the border from Hamilton into Flint, Michigan for a few times. I had some friends there. Anyway, we tried a little bit of a new format on the John Campea Show this morning where instead of me doing a big prolonged intro, we had like a shorter, tighter intro being done by Paris. Of course, Paris was also reading the questions. I found we got through more topics faster, but I didn't feel like we sacrificed on the conversation at all. Anyway, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts. Like I announced on the community tab a few days ago that Paris is going to be joining us for a few weeks, helping us to get a new kind of format put in place. And I'd like to know what you guys thought. What did you think about the format? And what did you think about Paris? And what did you think about that? I'd love to hear what you guys thought. Jared said he really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it, but we'll see how it works out over the rest of the week. And I'd love for you guys to chime in and give me your thoughts on it. All right, guys. The, of course, main point of Open Mic is to hear from you. If you guys have a thought, theory, opinion, or question, something you'd like me to address, go ahead and use the Super Chat feature. The Super Chats are currently open. I'll leave them open for a while longer. I'll let you guys know when I'm turning them off. And as long as your comment or question or thought or opinion is appropriate for us to address on the show, I'll address it here on the show. All right. Now, before we get into the questions, though, of course, last night, the new episode of Game of Thrones dropped. Now, I'm going to talk about the episode in full open spoilery detail just to give you guys a heads up or talk about it. Episode came out almost 24 hours ago, so it's been out for a while. I thought it was fantastic. I don't know how this show, week in, week out, continues to deliver such high quality content, like with amazing scripts, great character development, fantastic dialogue. I mean, I cannot believe how good this show is. And there are a couple of big highlights. One, Sir Lord Commander Ratface, Kristen, got the crap scared out of him by a dragon. That was nice to see. That was great. The whole thing about, is this guy really like related to the royal family in the bar? I don't know I'll be honest with you. I have no idea what's going on with that. Not a single thing. The scene in the whorehouse where Aegon goes with his buddies and his brother is there and clearly his brother was embarrassed or so. I mean, I thought that scene was wonderful. Every once in a while, as awful as they portray Aegon and Aemon, every once in a while they do something in the show to make us feel empathy for them. And I think that just makes the characters richer. Like seriously, I think that just makes the characters even richer. So I thought that was great. But what I really want to talk about is that scene. The scene near the end where Rhaenyra and Alicent have their conversation in the church, flower room, whatever it is you want to call it. I was practically holding my breath, right? Like I especially love that one moment when Alicent, I can't remember the exact line, but Alicent basically says, I may have been this and this, but I've never been untruthful. And like, you can tell when she says that, Rhaenyra is almost kind of like shocked for a second. She realizes she's right. Like Alicent has never lied to me. Like I may have been mad. I may have been mad at a number of things she did, but Alicent's never lied to me. And like that kind of thing. And just for a moment, like as her and Alicent are talking, there's a moment where you start to see, and this is so beautifully portrayed, when Rhaenyra, for a moment, starts to consider that maybe Viserys did change his mind. And like, you could just see that on her face, right? She never says the words, but you see it on her face. Oh, that's the kind. That's the word Millie Magna is saying in the live chat. The line was unkind, but never untrue. That was a great line. But as Alicent is explaining this, saying that I am not lying. I've never been untrue. Viserys changed his mind at the last second. And like, believing in the truthfulness of Alicent, you could just see it like for the first time in the entire series. Rhaenyra, for a moment, wonders if it is possible that her father changed his mind. And the whole time that that's going on, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm going, ask her to tell you exactly what he said. Please ask Alicent to tell you exactly word for word what he said. And then sure enough, she goes into the prince that was promised and all that kind of stuff. And like, she's, wait a minute, wait. He told you the Song of Ice and Fire. And Alicent, what is it? And then the tables get shifted, right? Because remember I was saying how incredible it was to see Rhaenyra, who has never doubted that she was her father's choice to inherit the throne, right? To see that moment of doubt on Rhaenyra's face, like maybe he did change his mind. And then the tables get switched when she says, yeah, he was talking about Aegon the Conqueror. He was talking about the tale being foretold of the Song of Fire and Ice. And then it goes from Rhaenyra looking like she just for the very first time doubted something she so firmly believed to now Alicent goes to suddenly doubting something that she so firmly believes. She so firmly believed that it was Viserys's wish for Aegon to become king, to all of a sudden going, oh. And like we're sitting there, me and Ann and a friend of ours are sitting here watching the show last night. And that moment that happens and Alicent goes quiet and I just go, well, shit. Right? It's like, oh, like you could say the moment happened where Alicent realized this has all been a terrible mistake. But then she's not wrong. When she says to Rhaenyra, it doesn't matter. It's too late. It's too late now. Nobody in King's Landing, certainly not in the Red Keep. It's not going to matter to anybody. I can go to my own family and say, you know what? I was wrong. I now understand that Viserys did not pick Aegon to be king. He always wanted Rhaenyra. It would not matter anymore at this point. Aegon certainly isn't going to give up the throne. Aemon wouldn't let Aegon give up the throne. Otto probably, as well-meaning as Otto might be in some cases, he's still a snake and he still wants his own grandson on the throne. He would never, the other members of the small council will never, nobody's going to care. And Alicent knows that. And Alicent's just like, it's too late. Like she didn't come out and admit she was wrong, but you could see it in her face. She knew she was wrong. Alicent realized she was wrong, but she was not incorrect in then saying it doesn't matter. It is now too late. So now two things happen in the show. Number one, Rhaenyra now for sure knows she was supposed to be on the throne. It's her throne. Her father chose her. She now knows that undoubtedly, not that she ever had a lot of doubt. Number two, she now knows that Alicent wasn't lying. Like Alicent really did think Viserys, and now Rhaenyra knows it. Alicent legitimately thought, Alicent was not trying to screw over Rhaenyra. Alicent really honestly thought that her husband, Rhaenyra's dad, had changed his mind, and that's changed now. But now the biggest change is that Rhaenyra now knows, or Alicent now knows, the truth. Alicent now knows the truth, and she knows that Viserys was not talking about Aegon inheriting the Iron Throne. That was not his place. Was not his intention. It was not what he wanted. It wasn't what he was trying to communicate. And now Alicent knows that. And you could just see a little bit in the preview of the next episode, where Alicent is sitting, in the room with Aegon, the king. She's like, "You're not half the king your father was." And he's like, "Watch your tone." She's like, "Or else what?" Like she's completely taking on a completely brand new disposition. And, now does this mean Alicent changes sides? No chance. That's her son. She may think her son's a dick, but it's still her son. So there's no chance she changes sides or anything like that. Just like a lot of people wondering if Otto was about to change sides. Unlikely, given that it's still his grandson. But still, I mean, I'll tell you what. I've said for a while now that the best parts of all the universe of Game of Thrones, the original series, House of the Dragon, the best part about Game of Thrones is not dragons burning things up or the big massive battles and clashes of swords. Those are all great. I love the dragons. I love the big battle scenes. I love all that kind of stuff. It's all wonderful. But the best, I've been saying on this show, the best of Game of Thrones, when Game of Thrones is at its peak, is in those quiet scenes. The conversations, the strategizing, the manipulating, when characters are actually playing the Game of Thrones. That to me is when this show is at its absolute best. The other week it was Otto having that conversation with Aegon. This week it's Rhaenyra when that conversation with Alicent. That is when this show is firing on all cylinders and is at its absolute peak. And it's brilliant. And for shows to do that, they've got to be brilliantly written. And this show is so freaking brilliantly written. So, you feel like you're watching a movie. I mean, like for a good TV show, every episode has got to have a definitive beginning, middle, and end. This episode was like an hour and 15 minutes, and it played like a movie. It had its beginning, its middle, and its conclusion, right? It played like a movie. That's what good TV shows do. Something that Disney Plus has not figured out yet. Not to say that Disney Plus hasn't had a couple of banger great shows. They have had a couple, but for the most part, they seem to miss that point. So yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm just watching that show last night and I'm just, again, flabbergasted. We have some amazing TV going right now with The Boys and House of the Dragon. But I get to look forward to episodes of each every week. It's almost like, as Rob would say, an embarrassment of riches. It's absolutely an embarrassment of riches. And I'm loving this show so much. And wasn't this just episode 3? Correct me if I'm wrong, but was this not just episode 3? Like, that's the thing. These shows are so good and the lengths are so meaty. Like, they're not these freaking 24-minute long episodes. They're so meaty that I feel like like last night was episode 6. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like it's episode 6. But it's just, it's so good. We still got a bunch of episodes to go. I'm loving it. Guys, question is for you. What did you think about last night's episode of House of the Dragon? I loved it. This thing just keeps getting better and better. You got any thoughts on it? Go ahead and use the super chat, fire them all in, and we will address it as such. All right. With that all down, guys, let's get to the reason that we're here, which is going on to your live comments and questions. Once again, if you have a thought, comment, or question, go ahead and use the super chat feature and fire it on in. You want to talk about House of the Dragon, by all means, but if you want to talk about anything else, go ahead and talk about anything else as well. All right, let's get things going here. We're going to start things off with Sam Fisher, who writes, one of two. The end of this episode changes everything. It kind of does. Now that Alicent knows the truth, any horrors can no longer hide behind believing she was right. She can no longer claim Aegon is the rightful king, now knowing she misunderstood. You're right and you're wrong. It changes everything for Alicent, right? For Alicent now, she's going to look at all of Westeros completely differently. Her son is not supposed to be on the throne. And now she knows that. She didn't know it before. She thought she was right. Now she realized she was wrong. And so for Alicent, it's a completely new world. She's literally walking away from that meeting, then she's going to wake up in the morning to a completely different world for her and from her perspective. However, it only changes everything for Alicent, not for anybody else. You know, again, like Alicent said to Rhaenyra as she was leaving, okay, you're right, but it doesn't change anything. It's too late. It's too late. The gears of war are in motion. Aegon ain't going to give up his throne. And even if I wanted him to, he wouldn't. And even if he would consider it, Aemon never would let him. The small council would never let it happen. It's just too late. So everything has changed for Alicent, but unfortunately nothing has changed for Westeros. And as we saw in the preview for next episode, the war is about to start. Everybody's going to war now. So it doesn't actually change anything for anybody else, Sam. All right. Next up, Mike's Movie Madness writes, hot damn, House of the Dragon just keeps getting better and better. Great to see Millie Alcock back. Supergirl was back. While I love the dragons and fantasy element, it's great to see a supernatural element start to get involved. Yeah, so I'll tell you what, I'm just going to be honest. I know it's going to make myself look dumb, but that happens all the time. When Daemon was having that fever dream of his, right? And then he comes to and he's at that tree. Help me out in the live chat. Was I the only one that for a second thought that was the tree of the three-eyed raven? Was I the only one to think that? Like, just for a moment, I thought he might have been I thought he was standing at that tree. I just thought that was the tree. And clearly then when they panned it back and they saw the location they were in, okay, yeah, it's not that. But good. Gabriel and Crush, yeah, are also saying them too. Okay, good. So it wasn't just me. There were other people who were thinking that as well. So what's going on with that? And I'll be honest with you, because I was standing further away from the TV, I was in the kitchen getting a piece of pizza when then the girl came out and said, "You're going to die here." I didn't see who it was. Did we know the girl? Did we know who that girl was? I was in the kitchen when that scene happened and I didn't quite catch it. So do we know that girl? Was that a brand new face or was that a girl we had seen before? Moki's saying it's not about the face. Kirk G is saying it's the same kind of tree. That's interesting. And Millie is saying it's a new character. Okay, so it's a new character. So clearly that you're going to die here. And I love Damon's response. It's just like, like he gets like, whatever. I mean, if you're Damon's like, I've been told I was going to die somewhere before and I've survived. So that was interesting. Also, I love that Damon's old squeeze has now become really faithful to the queen. Has become really faithful to Rhaenyra. I've always liked her character. I always thought her character got done dirty. And I really liked that at the end of last episode when she's the one who recognized that the twin had come to assassinate the queen. And I love the fact that Rhaenyra instantly recognized, you saved my life. So I love that. And I hope they set her up good. Oh, that's interesting. Jonathan Savage saying she could possibly be Melisandre from Game of Thrones. I don't think it is. But ooh, that's an interesting possibility. That's a very interesting possibility. All right. Anyway, let's get back to it here, shall we? Thanks for that, Mike's Movie Madness. Next up, we got Ian McAllister, who writes, I don't mean to be crude, but the BJ scene took me by surprise. I just rewatched Game of Thrones and we have never seen that. No, you're right. I will tell you right now, it shook me for a minute. It is Game of Thrones. It is a brothel. I expect some fellatio may be happening in that room, but we've never seen it so explicitly. We've never seen it so explicitly. Like it was like full blown. There it is. Erectile penetration in the face. You're right. It kind of shook me for a second, but that's the thing about all the Game of Thrones stuff. It completely always will. The moment you start to get a little bit comfortable, it will shock you into reminding you just how visceral this world is, whether it's a young child getting beheaded, whether it's like going into a brothel and seeing that. Yeah, they keep you on your toes, man. They keep you on your toes. It's like, hey, we're on HBO and Max. We can do this sort of stuff. Let's do it. Yeah, there you go. All right. Next up, Damaris Love writes, it was at that moment that Allison knew she screwed up. Oh, again, and I need to reiterate this because it was so powerful to me. I love the fact that the scene had both of them have that moment, right? Like Rhaenyra realizing that Allison wouldn't lie about this and realizing that, like, just, she'd always assumed Allison was lying to get her kid on the throne, but she realized Allison's not lying. Did my dad pick Aegon? And this doubt for the first time coming over her face. And then the tables get switched, right? Allison understanding Aegon the Conqueror. And then it's like, to her, it all made sense. She realized what was going on. And you're right. It was in that moment that, oh shit. Everything became kind of clear. Everything became kind of clear. All right. Donaldo Martinez writes, I watched Double Impact the other day and forgot that Bolo Young is in it. He was so terrifying to watch as a kid. I'll tell you what, Bolo Young, to me, especially when I was younger, that dude, because Kumite, damn, what's the name of this? Why am I freezing on the name of the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie? Help me out, guys. It was in the movie. The Kumite happened in the movie Bloodsport. Bloodsport. I remember watching Bloodsport for the first time. And when Bolo Young comes on screen, you will be next. I hadn't started watching bodybuilding or anything yet, but at that point in my younger life, I had never seen pecs like that. I still think Bolo Young had the largest pectoral muscles of any Asian guy ever to walk the earth. He was so disproportionately massive in the chest. I had never seen anything like it. Like Caucasian guy, Asian guy, whatever. I'd never seen anything like that before on a movie screen. And oh my God, he was terrifying. He was absolutely terrifying. I loved that guy. He was such a great on-screen villain. All right. Next up, Ian McAllister writes, also, the director for the episode confirmed 3 of those 4 eggs are Dany's. Oh, really? I remember thinking when they had the eggs, I remember thinking, those kind of look like the ones from Game of Thrones that Daenerys had. But I mean, they're dragon eggs. I'm sure a lot of them look alike. So she actually confirmed, the director confirmed those are the eggs that go on to be the eggs that Daenerys hatches. If so, that is actually very interesting. A nice little connection there. I like that. All right. Next up, Jared writes, 1 of 2. If this show had writing like The Acolyte, then Damon would have just said, "Oh no, I feel really bad that I was the cause of killing that kid." But this episode actually shows us just in his facial expression without having him explain how he feels. Pure visual, great writing. I love it. See, this is what happens, Jared. This is what happens when great and exceptional writing meets great and exceptional performers. Because it's all well and good to write that scene between Allison and Rhaenyra. It's a huge thing to write that scene. That's a huge, beautifully written scene. But it doesn't have half of its effectiveness if the performance then doesn't also carry it. It's great to have like Rhaenyra go, like realize that, oh, Allison's telling the truth. But unless you have a performer playing it out to show it, the way she emotes, the subtlety of her movements, the expression on her face, like it's a pure partnership of exquisite writing, brilliant performance, and then under the auspices of a great director giving great direction. It's all those facets have to work together. Because in something like The Acolyte, other than the girl who's playing the Jedi Master back on Coruscant, which I'm not even going to blame her, I'm just saying that performance is not so good. But like Lee Jung-jae is doing a very good job, like a very good job playing Soul. The young actress's name who's playing May and Asha, I think she's giving a very good performance. But a good performance isn't going to save you unless the script is there to support it. And the script for The Acolyte just ain't there. It's just not there supporting it. And I think there are some fans of TV who misinterpret when a script is bad. They say, oh, the performances are terrible. In actuality, and I say this as somebody who's completely hates The Acolyte and I've given up on it and not watching the rest of it. I watched, what was the last episode? Episode 5? I watched 5 episodes. I'm done. So remember that. I'm saying this as somebody who really dislikes that show. But I think a lot of people don't understand the distinction and where the line is drawn and saying, terrible performances. Actually, no. I'm sorry, but the performances, other than 1 or 2 characters, the performances in The Acolyte aren't the problem. Actually, I think most of the performers in the show are doing the best they can with the material they've been handed. And the performers are fine. Actually, some of the performances are really quite good, but without a script there. But see, Game of Thrones, and in this case specifically House of the Dragon, this is what happens. The magic that happens. And for that point, The Boys. This is the magic that happens when you get great script, partnered with great performances, and then guided by great direction. If you have a good script with terrible performances, if you have a terrible script with good performances, doesn't save it. But when you get those magic moments where you actually have a phenomenally written script with phenomenal performers, you end up with House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon, The Boys, Shogun, Last of Us. You can really get true magic. And I think that's pretty great. All right, guys, listen. We still have a few more questions to get to, but before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of Open Mic. My mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile, and the good folks at BetterHelp. You know when you discover a new binge-worthy show or a song that you bump on repeat and you have to share it with your friends so they can experience just how awesome it is? That's kind of what it feels like when you discover that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there is no way you can keep it to yourself. My last mobile service provider was quite good, but ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've enjoyed even better coverage, better phone clarity, and I'm paying less than a third of what I paid paid to my old provider. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions may apply. See Mint Mobile for details. We want to thank a sponsor of today's episode, BetterHelp. You know, guys, it's one of the most unfortunate human tendencies that we have to try to compare our life to others. And social media plays a big part of that. Comparison is like the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives because on the surface, it might look like they have it all together on their Instagram or YouTube, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. Give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Campea today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile and BetterHelp for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get back to your questions here, shall we? We're going to pick things up here with Christopher Brickner, who writes, John, there was one Russo brothers project they did since Endgame you liked. Everything Everywhere All at Once. They were producers on the film. Actually, and the Russo brothers had absolutely nothing to do with Everything Everywhere All at Once. They did get their name on the credit, but they literally had nothing to do with the movie. They were handed the movie, had the rights to produce the movie, decided they didn't want to do anything with it, and they handed it off to somebody else. They still ended up with producer credits. That happens a lot in the movie business. And listen, you know I love Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I adore Joe and Anthony Russo. And I would love it to talk about how Joe and Anthony Russo had anything at all to do with Everything Everywhere All at Once. But the reality is, the fact is that Joe and Anthony Russo both had absolutely zero contributions. They didn't do anything. They literally had the project and then they passed it on. They didn't want to do it. They still got a credit on it, but they literally did nothing on the film. And again, I love Joe and Anthony, but you can't give any credit to them for that movie. They literally had absolutely nothing to do with it, unfortunately. All right. Next up, not that it wouldn't have been great if they did have something to do with it. That would have been awesome, but no, they honestly had absolutely nothing to do with the movie. All right. Next up, Jerome writes, do you think Sister Sage knows it was A-Train? And what could be her overall plan? Also, do you think Tech Knight knows what's going on because of his power? No, Tech Knight's power isn't to magically know things. He's just able to see evidence, right? He can pick up on things and see evidence, but I don't think he doesn't magically know things, right? He has to actually be investigating something, looking into something, all that kind of stuff. And he hasn't been looking into anything. So no. As far as do I think Sage knows it's A-Train? I don't think she knows it, but I think she suspects. I think she at least suspects. Now, Homelander has put her in a position that she'll never be able to prove that. Because Homelander bought into the fake evidence that the Vought News Network guy was the one that did it. And now the only way to say it was somebody else means Homelander has to admit he was wrong, and he's not going to do that. So, yeah. And as far as what Sister Sage's overall plan is, don't know. But I think it has to do something. Part of it is taking Homelander down, I think. I think she wants to take a lot of people down. to be honest with you. She seems really upset. And I think we're going to find out more stuff from her backstory. But being the smartest person in the world, she can have a lot of designs going on, man. A lot of designs. All right. Next up, Christopher Brickner writes, I'd say the Russo brothers have done a decent job as producers since 2020, as their Extraction films and Everything Everywhere All at Once received good reviews. Okay, again, Everything Everywhere All at Once is not a Russo brothers film. They had nothing to do with the film, didn't do a single thing on it. And I really don't like the Extraction films. I love Chris Hemsworth. Love him. And Extraction, I loved the trailers. It's exactly my kind of movie. But other than some really good action, I thought the movie, I'll be frank with you, I thought Extraction was piss poor. I thought it was terrible character development, blatantly obvious plot path. The dialogue was almost Acolyte level. Not quite as bad as Acolyte, but almost Acolyte level. Yeah, and again, there are other people who like Extraction, and that's great. I'm not dissing on anybody else liking it. That's awesome if you liked it. But I wanted to like Extraction very much, and I thought Extraction was quite poor. And then once again, they had absolutely nothing to do with Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's why when the Academy Awards came around, they were nowhere to be seen, because they literally had nothing to do with the movie. All right. Next up, we've got Jerome again. And Jerome writes, see the final seasons of Barry or Doom. You know what? I still, to this day, have not gotten around to watching the final season of Barry. I've got no reason for it. I have no explanation for it. I love Barry. I think Barry was a terrific show, and I still have not gotten around to watching the finale. I still really couldn't tell you why I haven't gotten around to watching the finale, but I just haven't. And I got to get caught up. I absolutely have, because it's been like, what? How long ago did the Barry finale end? Like 6 months ago? A year ago? I got to get on that. I desperately got to get on that. All right. Next up, we got Alex Von Gollum, who writes, I'm curious about what the character claiming to be Viserys' bastard brother will do in the season. I don't think the showrunners made a meaningless scene. Oh, I agree. I don't think it was a meaningless scene everywhere. Now, whether or not he is who he says he is, who knows? We'll see. Certainly, a Targaryen does not necessarily have to have the white hair, because there's a certain Jon Snow that proves that. But I mean, I wasn't really clear on which Targaryen he was claiming to be related to. And I don't read the books, and I don't know what's going on there, but you're absolutely right. House of the Dragon doesn't throw in these little scenes for nothing. Something is going to come of that. What's going to come of it? Not really sure. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Next up, Jerome writes, should Yellowstone have recasted Costner? You know what? That's a really good question. I think when an actor tragically passes away, and when they were involved in an ongoing movie franchise or an ongoing series, I personally believe the right thing to do is to recast the role. That is the best way to honor the person who had been doing that role, is to not let the baton just sit there on the ground, but for them, pick up the baton for them and carry on. A situation like Yellowstone is difficult, though, because everybody in the world knows that Kevin Costner did not leave because he had to, that there was some nasty fighting going on. I think a lot of it was Costner's fault. Some of it maybe wasn't. Regardless, everybody knows the reason Costner isn't there anymore is because of behind the scenes drama, right? That actually makes it more difficult to recast a role, I think. The reality, though, is also true that they have been expanding the Yellowstone world, right? We've had we had 1893, 1923. We've got a new one coming out. they may have been coming to the end of this story anyway. They may have been coming to the end of the main story of Yellowstone anyway. And the new reboot that they're doing, the new show that they're doing, is going to have a number of Yellowstone's characters in it. So I don't know. Normally I'm all for recasting if a big character goes, but this particular situation, because of all the nastiness and all the fighting, I think it would have been very difficult for the audience to just see another person come in a recasted role. It may have been better for them than saying, like, getting Matthew McConaughey to now play John Dutton. Matthew McConaughey is coming in to kind of take over the lead role, but it's not John Dutton. It's a new character. So this might be the best way for them to go about it. All I know is that I love Yellowstone and I wish it was continuing, but I'm looking forward to the new show. I think the new show will be good. As long as Beth and Rip and a bunch of those, as long as they're in it, I'll be totally happy. I'll be completely happy. All right. Next up, we got John Martin, who writes, Paris was great in her first episode. Of course, Paris Rose joined us this morning. On the subject of physical media, where's Killers of the Flower Moon Blu-ray? Shame it didn't release stateside. I'll be honest with you. I thought Paris did great. And of course, listen, Paris is no newbie. For those of you who didn't see the community tab post, like, Paris has worked with AEW. She's worked at Lionsgate. She was an entertainment correspondent for BET. She was just on the red carpet of the Bear new season premiere. She's experienced. She's smart. And when I asked her if she would come on for a few weeks to help us establish a new format for the next month or so, I was thrilled. Ann and I took her to lunch. We were thrilled that she agreed to come do it. And I think she did a great job. And I think, as important as the job she did, I think she's really established that this format is the better format for my show. I mean, it's essentially, it's the format that I had set up when I was still at AMC, right? When we had iconic, legendary great hosts like Sinead DeFries, or we had Ashley Mova. These elements, they did such a great job setting up the stories. I just think the format is better. Having a proper presenter set up the story, then hand it off to one of the pundits to address the story. Also, somebody who's much better at reading and presenting, going through the viewer questions. It just set it up better. I felt like the show today was tighter. I felt like we got through all the stories at a much better pace, but we didn't skimp on content for it. It just really worked for me. And I think one of the big reasons why it worked so well was because of Paris. And I'm really looking forward to having her around this month. I think it's going to be a blast. And then if the format truly does work out well, then we know to go out and look for somebody who can come in and be in that role a little bit more permanently. But man, we're so grateful Paris has agreed to come in and help us out with this. I think she's just been a great blessing for us. All right. Thanks for that, man. All right. Next up. Oh, and as far as the Blu-ray, I mean, nobody buys physical media anymore. John, that's not true. Oh, look, obviously not nobody. All right. Obviously there are still people out there who will buy Blu-rays and DVDs and things. Of course there are still people, but the number has shrunk so much. Most of the major Blu-ray producers are stopping to make, like, remember Samsung announced they were the number one Blu-ray player maker in the world. Samsung has announced they stopped. It's not that they're going to stop. They did stop. They stopped making physical players. The video game systems are taking out physical drive discs. Like, the next Xbox model is not going to have a physical drive. The next iteration of PlayStation is just not even going to have an option with a physical drive. It's just gone though. Redbox is now out of business. Walmart's announced that they're going to phase out the sale of physical media. Best Buy has said, we talked about it on the show, that they're going to phase out physical media. So I don't know that anybody really cares about where's the physical media copy of that. Obviously there are some who do. Yes. But I mean, on a wider scale, it's just, most people don't care anymore. All right. Next up. We've got Wesley, who writes, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Wesley. Sorry about that. He writes, hey, John, go to the movies on me. Hope to enjoy this random act of kindness. What are your thoughts on fans and Hollywood stars doing acts of kindness, probably mean for each other? Listen, I am a sucker for random acts of kindness videos that I come across. Like, and listen, I've cried in like, I think 5 movies. In the tens of thousands of movies I've watched, I think I've cried in like 4 or 5 of them. I'm not a crier. Nothing wrong with being a crier. I wish I did express sadness a little bit more that way, but I'm not really a crier. I express grief in different ways and sadness in different ways and whatever. But I'll tell you what, every once in a while, I come across like these videos of somebody doing something outrageously kind for somebody else. And I ain't gonna lie to you, man, that shit chokes me up. That chokes me up whenever I see stuff like that. And I don't know why that's the stuff that gets me emotionally. But I'll tell you what, it reminds me, like every year when we do the Adopt a Family, I get absolutely blown away by when we go and look, like we'll put up the Amazon wish list. And we'll give you guys a link to the Amazon wish list. And I'll think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we got a couple of things? And then like an hour after we put up the wish list, I go and look. It's like, oh my God, like 80 to 90% of it is already been bought. Like when I see shit like that, that's the stuff that gets me. It's a very emotional thing for me. And it hits me on a very, very deep level. All right. Thanks for that, Wesley. Imposter writes, do you think we will get a Moon Knight Season 2 announcement at San Diego Comic-Con or a Spider-Man 98 like they did with X-Men 97? Number one, I don't think we're getting a Moon Knight Season 2. I really don't. I'd be down for it because even though I think the show ended up being a little bit disappointing, I think there was promise there. I think there was potential. There were certain things that worked well in the Moon Knight series. Overall, it was disappointing, but if they did a second season and really were able to lean into the strengths, correct the weaknesses, I think we could get a pretty interesting season 2. I honestly don't think we're going to get one at all. But I also am not expecting a Spider-Man 98 announcement or anything like that, because one of the things that was in that report about the Russo brothers like getting turned down to direct the Avengers films was the fact that it sounded like the reports coming out are saying that the Marvel San Diego Comic-Con panel is very much going to be focused on movies, not Disney Plus. So it sounds like that at San Diego Comic-Con, it's going to be about all the movies. And then probably at D23, they'll focus more on the Disney Plus stuff. Now, whether that'll include Spider-Man 98 or not that I'm expecting that at all, but no, I don't expect we're going to get a Moon Knight Season 2 period. And I don't think we're going to get a Spider-Man 98 announcement at San Diego Comic-Con. Maybe it happens at some point. Maybe it even gets announced at D23, but I'm not expecting that we'll see it at San Diego Comic-Con. All right. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, Damon, I have come to claim Harrenhal. Strong. Okay. I don't know why. I loved that scene. It's like, I'm here to claim Harrenhal. And the guy gets on his knees. I hereby claim fealty, or declare fealty to Rhaenyra, first of a name. And I was like, all right, no problem. And then the whole dinner scene too, when they're eating and stuff like, I don't know why, Sam, I absolutely loved that whole sequence. I thought that whole thing was great. All right. Next up, Jerome writes, subjectively, do you think there has been more good movies and shows with diversity than bad, especially the ones made by Disney? Yes. That's just, it's not, I mean, that's clear. That's obvious. Look, all diversity means, like really, all diversity means is stopping the century-old agenda in Hollywood of exclusion. That's all diversity is. That's all it is. Diversity is just a quick way of saying, hey, You know that 100-year-old mandate, that 100-year-old agenda that's been around Hollywood forever of excluding everybody else? Yeah, how about we stop that? That's all it is. That's all diversity is. Diversity is just saying, hey, we're not only going to have this type of person in movies and TV shows anymore. That's it. It's just saying we're going to let it be more like the real world. We're going to have lots of different people can be in it. The problem, of course, is that there's still a lot of people that don't want that agenda to go away. There are a lot of people out there that want that agenda of exclusion. They don't want women or people of color or whatever. They don't want anybody else to be seen on screen. The Acolyte is a great example, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier today because I get flooded with messages saying, the Acolyte's just so woke, and Acolyte is just pushing their agenda. They're pushing their wokeness on it. And it's like, here, this is a great example of this. Name one thing in the Acolyte, one scene in the Acolyte, where they talk about the importance of Osha and May being black or being women. Never. Point to one scene in the Acolyte about how it's vitally important that this show is showing the struggle we talked about on the John Campea Show today, the struggle of the black woman in the Star Wars universe. No, they literally never mention it. It's literally not a part of the show. They're just there. The character is female and the actress they got to play it is black. That's it. There's no agenda. That's it. There's no messaging. There's nothing. And what I've started to tell people is this, is if you acknowledge, because you have to, it's right there, that there's nothing in the script anywhere. There's nothing in this show that is pushing any sort of an agenda. You're just mad that these people are even here. Then you're the problem. If you're just mad that these people are even here, that these characters are black, if that's the part that offends you, if that's a part that makes your tiny little balls shrivel up into your, rectal area, if that's the part that bothers, they're there. They're there. Them being there is an agenda. If you're saying somebody just being physically able to participate and somebody just being in something is offensive to you, you got to start looking in the mirror. You need to have a good conversation with Mr. Rogers. You need to get a Ouija board, summon the spirit of Mr. Rogers, and you need Mr. Rogers to have a come to Jesus moment with you because you are the problem. And that's the thing. That's the problem. People want, and yet there's really no such thing as diversity. The world is the world. The world has always been a place of multiism, right? But in Hollywood for 100 years, they had a very strict gatekeeping agenda. Keep everybody else out. We don't want to see black people. We don't want to see Asian people. We don't want to see gay people. And for 100 years, there's this big unwritten rules, but all the studio executives knew it. We had this rule, keep everybody else out. And now that they're starting to say, now that, the world is starting to say, hey, maybe it's time to get rid of that agenda, people are very afraid. They're very afraid and they're very scared because all they know is that agenda and all they want is that agenda. And it's a scary thing. Anyway, it's scary for them, I should say. It's a very scary thing for them. All right, next up, we got Chubbs GPT who writes, a duel I want to see in the series, Damon versus Aemond. I don't see how they avoid it. Like, I very clearly think that is something that the show is building up to, is that conflict, that fight. It's coming. Now, of course, there is a way they avoid it, right? There is a way they avoid that fight. I don't know if somehow, some way, there's some familial reconciliation. Maybe Aemon gets pissed off at the way his brother is making fun of him and that pisses him off. Maybe that becomes a part of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, they are building up to that fight. We're going to get that fight. The only question is that fight going to happen with them on dragons, or is that fight going to happen between the two of them on the ground with swords? That's, I think, the only thing I think that's in question at this point. I hope it's on the ground with swords, personally, because that's the fight I want to see. All right, next up. CH3SM3. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, guys, I've turned off the super chats. So if you've been trying to send in a super chat and you haven't been able to, that's probably why. Don't worry, super chats will return on the next open mic, but they've been turned off for now. So we're going to get through the rest of the ones that we have here. CH3SSM3N writes, I don't know if this has been said, but I'm thinking it's the tumor that's talking to Butcher, a la the Venom symbiote. I don't think it's the tumor. I think it's whatever the worms are. And the worms are not the tumor. The worms are something else. So somebody also had a theory that there might be two worms. One worm is Becca, his wife. And the other worm is, I keep forgetting we just went over this in the last show. I keep forgetting the actor's name. Who's John Winchester in Supernatural, and he plays Negan, and I keep forgetting his name. 3 names to him. Anyway, guys, write in. What's the actor's name again? So I think one worm is, the theory is Jeffrey Dean Morgan. That's what it is. Thank you, Millie. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So I think one of the worms, at least the theory goes, one of the worms is Becca, one of the worms is Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So I don't think it's the tumor itself. It's that. And man, God, I love this show. I love this show. I love the boys so much. It just keeps getting better and better. All right. Next up, Isaac Martinez writes, can't wait to see tons of Studio Ghibli movies in theaters from both Regal and Harkins. Well, you know what's funny? I believe it's AMC. AMC, at least in my theaters here in Riverside and back in Burbank, every year they would do like a Studio Ghibli festival. Like, let me know in the live chat, guys, if you guys have had that too in AMC theaters near you. But at least at the AMC theaters I've lived near, every year they like do a Studio Ghibli festival where over a weekend or over 2 weekends, they play like all the Studio Ghibli stuff. Yeah, Uni is saying it's called Ghibli Fest is what they call it. So they've had that at AMC theaters at least for every year. So I didn't know if it's, and John AM is saying it happens at his AMC as well. So I guess does that mean it's expanding to other theaters as well? I'm not really sure, but they've always done a very good job. You know what, AMC, as much crap as I give AMC, for good reason, they're still my movie theater of choice, and they've always done a lot of good things. They're big Oscar, at the getting close to Oscar season, they play all the Best Picture nominated films. They do little things like this. They play a lot of Bollywood films as well. They really program a lot of international stuff as well. They really do some stuff they do very, very well, gotta say. All right. Thanks for that, Isaac. Next up, Chubbs GPT. And this is our final question of the day, guys. Chubbs GPT writes, initially just thought of Homelander just as a parody of Superman, but after seeing episode 4, Homelander is who Kal-El would be if raised by Vought. Yeah. I mean, what they've done with Homelander, and I remember I initially kind of recognized this in the episode in season 1 with the airplane and the airplane going down and Queen Maeve was with them and all the people on the plane died. You're right. At first, and I think this was by design, Homelander kind of comes across simply as a Superman parody, but he is so much more than that. Like, are there similarities between Superman and Homelander? Yeah, but like Homelander's not born on a distant planet, come to Earth, you know, all that. There's a lot of very fundamentally, they're very, very, very different characters, but he has evolved way past just being a Superman parody, an evil Superman parody. They have made him such a beautifully fleshed out character. And this is how good they've done with him. He is so vile, and yet there are times that the show makes us feel empathy for him. Like, for the first time ever, he kind of fell in love, right, with Stormfront. And then he realized what Stormfront was. And then he felt torn about that whole thing. His whole aging process, figuring out what his role is with Ryan as a dad, understanding the hell that he had to grow up in, and the abuse that he suffered while growing up as a child and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's such a great character. Like, he's so vile and so evil, maybe the most evil character on television. And yet there are many times a show makes us go, because of the little elements of humanity in him, they make us feel empathy for him sometimes. It's such a richly written, multi-dimensional show that I love what they're able to accomplish and what they're able to pull off. All right, guys, listen. That will do it for all the super chats. I'm now going to take a few minutes, though, and I'm going to go over to the live chat. So listen, if you guys are in the live chat and you've got a question, do me a favor, look in the live chat right now. See how I'm formatting this? Write question, all in capital letters with a colon. And that way I know you're asking me a question and not just that you're chatting amongst yourselves. And I'm not saying I'm going to answer every one of them. But I'll pick a couple out here if any of you guys have some questions you want to throw in there. All right, so we'll start with John A.M., who writes, do you think Harry Potter reboot series will use John Williams' Harry Potter theme song, or will they create a new one to differentiate? That's a very good question. My guess, and it's only a guess, I think they're going to use the same one. It's just too iconic. Bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. So yeah, I think they're going to use the same one. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. Andrew writes, are you going to the AMC Screen Unseen tonight? It's Fly Me to the Moon. Is that what it is? Confirmed through Reddit users? You know, Ann and I were trying to decide what we're going to do tonight. I think I might go. If it's Fly Me to the Moon, I might go to see that tonight. So yes, I think you just made my plans for me, Andrew. I'm going to go see that. Thanks for letting me know. Let's see. Josh writes, do you ever think there will be a day that one horror film makes $1 billion? It's absolutely possible. You know, if a movie like Oppenheimer, which is not your typical $1 billion kind of film, if Oppenheimer can get to within a breath of $1 billion, I think the right horror movie at the right time, it's possible. It's possible. Let's see. I am JMS writes, question, do you think Despicable Me 4 makes $1 billion? My guess is yes, but I haven't seen the movie, right? Like, I saw Inside Out 2, and then I saw how great that movie is. I got to see Despicable Me 4. Like, so it's definitely going to be big, but if it's great, it could definitely be the next $1 billion film. Jake Clark writes, thoughts on Quiet Place Day 1. I've talked about that earlier. Not as good as the first two Quiet Place movies, but a very, very good, emotionally satisfying, tense thriller kind of a film. I really enjoyed it. Again, not as good as the other two, but I thought it was really quite good. Let's see. Poisonous Plant writes, favorite animated film and TV show. All-time favorite animated movie is the original Lion King. I really like the 2019 Lion King too, but the original Lion King is my favorite animated movie, and Arcane is my all-time favorite animated show. Let's see. Question, what's your favorite Colin Farrell performance? Not necessarily best. Mine's Phone Booth. Well, best and favorite would be the same thing to me. Probably In Bruges. I don't think that's his best movie, but I think the performance he gave in that's my favorite performance of his. Jarrett is writing, are you looking forward to Rings of Power Season 2? I am, just with a lot less excitement than I was looking forward to Season 1. Now, look, I'm still looking forward to Season 2. If they can correct the mistakes of the first season, build on the strengths that they had in the first one, it could turn out to be very, very good. So I'm looking forward to it. But it's just like, I was looking forward to Season 1 for years. It was like my most anticipated show for a lot of years. I'm not anticipating it on that level anymore, but yeah, it's just, but I'm still looking forward to it. Let's see. Lucas writes, Anthony Starr's Reverse Flash is the best I can think. Do you agree? No. I think Anthony Starr is great, but I think a million different people could play that role. If they announced Anthony Starr, great. He's a very good actor. I'd be all for it. But best? No, I think there's probably a lot of different ones that would be an even better fit. Let's see. Kian writes, do you think Deadpool and Wolverine will be $1 billion film? Oh, I've said that a million times. Yes. Now, it all depends on if the movie's good, right? If Inside Out 2 was not good, it would not have made the $1 billion mark. It still would have made a lot of money, but not $1 billion. Deadpool 3 has to be great. Has to be great. Doesn't have to be the best movie ever, but it's got to be great. If Deadpool is, let's put it this way. If Deadpool 3 is as good as Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, it will make $1 billion. No question to me. It will make $1 billion. All right. Take time just for a couple of more. Let's see. Jerome writes, do I think A-Train will fight Homelander? That's not a fight. A-Train can't fight Homelander. I mean, he basically lost to Starlight. Starlight can't beat Homelander. I mean, really, the only person who can beat Homelander straight up is Soldier Boy. That's it. So, I mean, do I think A-Train flips? Yes. But if it comes down to A-Train and Homelander fighting, it's not really a fight. It's just Homelander murdering A-Train. Right? Unless A-Train, teams up with a couple of people, then, I mean, they could make a go of it. They could totally make a go of it. Oh, yeah. Jermaine King writes, did you laugh when Aegon asked the knight, didn't you all take a vow of chastity? I did. And then his buddy's like, yeah, of course we did. Ha, ha, ha. And then the king just looks at him like, motherfucker, I take this seriously. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was really, really good. All right, let's see. Last question. Michael Robert Maximilian Moriarty writes, apparently Stranger Things 5 episodes are going to be movie length, just like season 4. Movie length, though, is a flexible term. What is movie length? Because to some people, movie length means 2 hours. To some people, movie length means 1 hour and 15 minutes, because there have been major feature length films that have been 1 hour and 15 minutes long. So it all depends. But yes, I am looking forward to long episodes. I really do like long episodes, especially when they're as well done as like Stranger Things. And yeah, so, and guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for coming along and being with me here today. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number 1, because you gave us fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Don't forget to come on back tomorrow to join me and Paris and Jonathan and Ray. We already got a few things we're lining up to talk about tomorrow. Hope you guys will come and join us for that. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.